experience. So it's very informal, a time together. So please feel free to eat or drink or whatever you need to do on this lunch hour. People will probably continue to join us as we get started, but wanted to take a moment to welcome you. I'm Pastor Sarah, and we're very blessed to have our student pastor, Cassidy Hall, leading us through our Lenten series using a curriculum from the Katie Cannon Womanist Institute. And so we will be led by Black women leaders, and a very beautiful way, I think, for us to grow in our faith journey during Lent. We are recording these sessions, and so they will be recorded in webinar view. So the recording will only show the person who is presenting and talking. And then the recording will go on our church YouTube channel so that you can share this video with other people who weren't able to join us for the live experience. Feel free to use the chat as a way to be interactive. This will be mostly our student pastor, Cassidy, presenting, and all of your opportunities to comment and to engage in conversation will be done on the chat. So welcome. It's good to have you all here. We will go ahead and get started formally now. We will end promptly at 1 o'clock. So this is a 1 hour time together. And I want to begin with our Ash Wednesday ritual. Ash Wednesday is the beginning of our Lenten season. And so join me in a spirit of prayer as I read for us a special Lenten poem by Jan Richardson. And so I invite you to be in a posture of prayer. Blessing the dust for Ash Wednesday. All those days you felt like dust, like dirt, as if all you had to do was turn your face toward the wind and be scattered to the four corners, or swept away by the smallest breath as insubstantial. Did you not know what the Holy One can do with dust? This is the day we freely say we are scorched. This is the hour we are marked by what has made it through the burning. This is the moment we ask for the blessing that lives within the ancient ashes, that makes its home inside the soil of the sacred earth. So let us be marked, not for sorrow, and let us be marked, not for shame. Let us be marked, not for false humility or for thinking we are less than we are, but for claiming what we can do within the dust, within the dirt, within the stuff of which the world is made, and the stars that blaze in our bones, and the galaxies that spiral inside the smudge we bear. A blessing of the ashes. And if you are like me, you might live in a home where there is dust all around you. And so I'm just going to slide my finger across my desk, picking up dust, and then place that on my forehead and make a sign of the cross. And blessings as we begin our Lenten journey. I invite our student pastor, Cassidy Hall, to lead us forward.
Thank you, Pastor Sarah. That blessing is very, very powerful, and I appreciate that. So as Pastor Sarah discussed, hold on, I lost my mouse. Where am I? Well, hopefully this will work. Yeah, we're going to be learning from womanist poets and theologians, and this material um, today in particular is about preparation and preparation for Lent and preparation for this season. So before we begin, will you join me in prayer? Thank you, Lord, for beginning our journey at the river, a place that symbolizes birth and transformation. Today, we're going to learn how to do that, how to do that, how to do that. As we go to the next level and layer that is within us, that is within me, that is within you, help us to learn how to breathe and wear both humility and strength as we begin a new day. So we're going to begin our time listening to a poet. And as we listen to this poet, her name is Sonia Sanchez, I'm going to ask you the question at the bottom. What is a word from this that speaks to your spirit? I might play this a couple times.
We're going to do that. We're going to come together and be together as one, because it be about that at this time, at this place. Because whether we want to deal with it or not, as I said once before in my book for young brothers and sisters, I said it's a new day. I mean, it is a new day. If you check out how people be moving today, it is a new day. We're not about going back to the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s or even the 60s. It's a new day. We're in the 70s, and we're going to move on. We're going to be out of sight, black men. Going to be part Panther. Going to be all Minister Farrakhan. Going to rap like rap. Going to teach like Elijah. Going to rule like Nyeri. Going to believe like King believe. We're going to be TCB and black men as we walk in our red, yellow suns. We're going to be some beautiful black women. Going to move like the queens we be. Going to be full-time Muslim women. Going to be strong as Sojourner. Gonna be gentle as Sister Clotel's smile. Gonna be the poetry of Gwendolyn's words. Gonna be the green south of Fannie Lou Hamer. Gonna be warm as an African night while walking like songs. We're gonna be some bad people, just you wait and see. We're gonna be some bad, 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 bad people. Just you wait and see.
So a couple of things that I'm going to speak into that is that opening line. We gonna do that. We gonna do that. We gonna do that. I'm going to play this one more time, and then I'd like to kind of bounce around the room if anybody would like to share a word from this that speaks to your spirit.
We're going to do that. We're going to come together and be together as one, because it be about that at this time, at this place. Because whether we want to deal with it or not, as I said once before in my book for young brothers and sisters, I said it's a new day. I mean, it is a new day. If you check out how people be moving today, it is a new day. We're not about going back to the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s or even the 60s. It's a new day. We're in the 70s, and we're going to move on. We're going to be out of sight, black men. Going to be part Panther. Going to be all Minister Farrakhan. Going to rap like rap. Going to teach like Elijah. Going to rule like Nyeri. Going to believe like King believe. We're going to be TCB and black men as we walk in our red, yellow suns. We're going to be some beautiful black women. Going to move like the queens we be. Going to be full-time Muslim women. Going to be strong as Sojourner. Gonna be gentle as Sister Clotel's smile. Gonna be the poetry of Gwendolyn's words. Gonna be the green south of Fannie Lou Hamer. Gonna be warm as an African night while walking like songs. We're gonna be some bad people, just you wait and see. We're gonna be some bad, 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 bad people. Just you wait and see.
So, as you think about that poem and as you think about this idea of preparation, Yeah, just ask the room what speaks to your spirit from this. Perhaps how did it make you feel? Did it provoke memories for you or thoughts? Did it inspire you culturally or spiritually? Did you recognize names? Does anybody want to speak into that?
I loved the names that were lifted up, Sojourner Truth, and talking about the strong and the sweet, that there is strength in speaking the truth and sweetness in the smile of friendship.
Yeah.
I have a question. Did she indicate that, because I heard this the second time through and it didn't hit me the first time, did she indicate that this was written or spoken during the 70s?
I do not know the answer to that.
That's what I heard too.
I believe 1971 is what I'm seeing on here.
Seems pretty prescient in that case. But I also wonder, how, I guess for myself, I kind of have to make the juxtaposition of that being written at that time, compared to today's environment. And I'm not sure what to make of that.
Made me think about how we really haven't come that far.
I think one thing that was striking to me in my spirit was just, just the rhythmic nature of poetry and the ways in which rhythm can take us into deeper understanding. There's lots of things in that I will never be able to grasp or understand. But am I able to go into that mystery and that unknowing more deeply through things like poetry and art? So
I thought the repetition of gonna be was powerful. I mean, each time it was repeated, it became stronger. And, like we're not letting up. We're gonna be all of these things that we want to be.
Yeah.
I'm a little uncertain about the ending when she repeated the term bad, bad, bad so many times. And I'm wondering if in this context, what that means is powerful. And I certainly can understand that, but I can't help thinking that, there are certainly elements in our society that would take that term literally and use it against these folks as a result.
Yeah.
Bad had a lot of that word bad had a lot of connotations in the 70s.
Yes, it did. In fact, to the point where I think bad was good. I was struck by the new day and the not going back. I think those were powerful to me.
Yeah. So let's take these things that spoke to our spirit, and now we're going to move into a different portion of this, which is story linking. And so we're going to take Sonia Sanchez's words with us and now read some scripture about Jesus. And while we read this, I want you to think, what are some similarities and maybe differences in the life and experience of Sonia Sanchez and Jesus? So in Matthew 3:13 through 17, It says, Then Jesus came from Galilee to John at the Jordan to be baptized by him. John would have prevented him, saying, I need to be baptized by you, and do you come to me? But Jesus answered him, Let it be so now, for it is proper for us in this way to fulfill all righteousness. Then he consented. And when Jesus had been baptized, just as he came up from the water, suddenly the heavens were opened to him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from heaven said, This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased. So does anything immediately maybe stick out between, right, this notion of preparation and the words of Sonia and these words from scripture?
The word that popped out to me immediately was the word now. The words I caught from Sonia were at this time and place at the beginning of her poem. And for some reason, that caught me. Now.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that stands out to me in that passage is John's dispute or refutation that, he should not be doing the baptizing. It's Jesus that should be baptizing him. And in the context of racial justice, I see that as very instructive, that it's not for us to be doing the baptizing or the work or the stepping out. It's for us to be following someone else. So anyway, that's always struck me about that passage.
Good. Thank you. So this is also from the material to take a deeper look into these possible similarities. So in our biblical text, we find Jesus getting ready to go to the next level. He knew that baptism was the next thing to do, and as such, he had to get ready. He was going to John the Baptist, the radical prophet in the wilderness of Judea, the locust and the wild honey brother. Am I the only one that can let her in? Sorry, someone is trying to be admitted. Sorry, friends. Okay, adding. Okay, back to this. The radical prophet in the wilderness of Judea, the locust and wild honey brother. And even though John the Baptist felt out of place, Jesus didn't. Is it just me? Or did you think about this? Could Jesus swim? Did anyone else notice him out there as something out of the ordinary? Finally, when God in the form of the Holy Spirit showed up, did it feel like a Neo and Morpheus moment from the Matrix? Unlike Neo, Jesus did not have to choose either the red pill or the blue pill. He just got baptized, and he knew that it was time. Isn't it amazing that even if we are anxious, a little bit uncertain, or have no tangible evidence that proves the divine claim, God will enter into our bodies, hearts, and minds, create a holy of holies, and then say, go. As we reflect on this moment, think about the Jordan River and the way it must have sounded, and the people who were frantic and excited about being baptized by John the Baptist. What kind of smells were present? What were people cooking or preparing while they waited, or were they fasting? How were people dressed or undressed? Were the Pharisees there documenting and looking at the family members who were disgracing the commandments of God in their eyes? As you think about these things, I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. And as you do that, I'm going to ask us all, if you feel comfortable, keep your eyes closed. I'm going to ask you to kind of visualize yourself standing in the Jordan River with Jesus for a moment. During this, I'm going to play some sounds from that space. As you listen to this for the next couple minutes, keep considering what it might smell like, look like, feel like to be there in the Jordan River with Jesus. Love between us is speech and breath. Loving you is a long river running. I want you to take a moment to read this poem to yourself. I want you to read it as if it was written just for you. And as you come out of this moment with the river, with Jesus, with this haiku, just pose the following question to the room. Do you see any correlation between the biblical text or that visualization and this haiku? Are they both Jesus and Sonia perhaps preparing for something, for loving, for a new day? When I first read this haiku alongside kind of that visualization moment, it felt, you know, like a kind of love poem from God, and I hope that you feel that too. I think there's no mistake that this curriculum was done in such a way to have this haiku be paired with that visualization. Any thoughts or feelings in the room that you'd like to express? It's fine if you don't. It's important to bathe in these moments, to kind of baptize ourselves in these moments.
I must say that when I was listening with my eyes closed to the river, it made me kind of apprehensive.
Yeah.
As a small person, I was anxious about whether I could keep my balance in a river that was rushing that strongly. So it didn't feel, particularly comforting. But when you finished that and showed, there were various images that you hadn't played. There was one that was, a peaceful stream. And that's how I always envision that baptism scene, in a peaceful, quietly moving river, not one that is somewhat threatening.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of it. That river is not large, but it's peaceful and slower running. Very wooded, beautiful, lots of doves. I think it's interesting to me to think that there was a baptizer. We think of being baptized into the life of Christ. But geez, there was baptism before that.
Mm.
So the history of what John the Baptizer was doing is something I'd like to hear about.
Mm.
I had some of
Yeah.
the same thoughts as Sue about the power of that river. Thinking that, because you had said something about, what would it be like for those folks at the time? And I tend to think that there's probably a good chance that many of those people did not know how to swim. And if they had been challenged to, or encouraged, I'll say, to walk into a river that was flowing that fast, that could have been pretty frightening. And so if that were the case, then maybe that was an indication of the dedication. But as Marion said, and as Sue was, envisioned, if the reality was that the water was much calmer, then that kind of presents a different picture of what actually was going on. And yeah, I would have certainly been very hesitant to wade into a river running that fast, because I've been in that situation before, and depending on what the structure of the bottom is, it could knock you off your feet fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are just my thoughts.
But that to me is the power of the baptism, is to calm that down. I guess I was envisioning Randy carrying his mom into the river and her being nervous, and he and Jesus both being able to calm her down and release her into the river and floating. You can float calmly on a fast river. The power of the current is part of life, and also giving yourself into it. But that calmness came from the baptism and Jesus. That's where I got it.
And I'm struck by this tension of, this tension of stepping into danger in order to feel that calm, in order to, I mean, it reminds me of the opening poem. This preparation and this movement into something uncertain, opening into a new day, this preparation that sometimes it does take us this sense of stepping into danger.
Take the blue pill.
Right.
I loved the sensuality of this experience. And I mean the word sensual in terms of senses. So to feel, to hear, to smell. And I started smelling fish. And I started imagining the fish in the river. And, not only feeling the water, but the branches that would brush by my legs, washing past me. And I really was grateful, because so many times when I've read the scripture, the scenes are frozen still. There's no movement in these scenes for me. And so listening with my ears and smelling really made this come alive for me in a way I'd never experienced before.
I experienced the smell too, and now living by the river, there's a certain smell to the river and to right around the river, and different smells at different times. But I envision it almost as a kind of there's a little mossy smell or something, and it is quite distinctive. And that was one thing I could kind of conjure up. I couldn't figure out what they were cooking. Fish was, I should have thought of that, Pastor Sarah, but I didn't. The other thing I was thinking about is a little bit of, for me, I'm very comfortable in the water. I like to swim. I like to do water aerobics. So water doesn't bother me. But one of the things I've learned about it is when you are in that kind of situation, I think it was Alice that said it, when you are with that um, in a, kind of rapidly moving stream, you need to sort of, as they say, go with the flow, because if you fight it, then you definitely are in big trouble. Um,
Mm. Mm.
I was going to add that I was thinking of the crowd of people waiting and probably being rather sweaty and smelly, and that getting into the river, even though there was some apprehension, would have been kind of a relief. And the freshness of the cool water might help um, um, get rid of that sense of being surrounded by too many smelly people.
Yeah. Mm.
And it also made it seem like going from more of a communal thing to something individual
Mm.
when you step forward into the water.
Yeah. So I'm going to share a little more information about Sonia. As most of you know, a haiku is a very short form of Japanese poetry in 3 phrases. As we reflect on the haiku for you, which we just read, we cannot help but ponder the following words: love, breath, speech, and river. What comes to mind when you think about those 4 words? When Sonia was 1 year old, her mother died in childbirth. When she was 6, her beloved grandmother died. As a result of these traumatic events, she would become a stutterer, and it would be a mark upon her. Her condition caused her to read more and pay close attention to language and the way it sounds. In 1943, she moved to Harlem, New York, where she lived with her father and her sister and her new stepmother. While living in Harlem, Sonia overcame her stuttering and excelled in school, finding her poetic and prophetic voice. As we story link back to Jesus, we can't help but think that Jesus' earthly father, Joseph, had probably died during this time. He is not mentioned in the biblical text after Jesus' infancy and early childhood. Jesus, like Sonia, is facing the stigma of coming from a community that had been labeled as no good. Jesus' home and community of Nazareth is referenced in the biblical text of John 1:43-46. Sonia, who grew up in the shackles of segregation, racial terror, and discrimination in Birmingham, would see firsthand the trauma facing Black people in the United States. Yet, in spite of this reality, we are reminded by the life witness of Jesus and Sonia that the love of God is always with us as we move into our divine assignment towards greatness. The breath of the Holy Spirit confirms and affirms our call, the speech from God that proclaims us, and finally the river that we all metaphorically carry with us from our ancestral beginnings to present day realities, invokes memory and meaning. As we move into the next level and the season of our lives. So this was helpful for me to kind of continue to story link these 2 stories. And as you listen to this and as you think about, what we've kind of gone over today, I think my question, what are some of the lessons that you might be learning about preparation or preparation for Lent in particular from these 2 stories and from story linking Sonia and Jesus today?
One thing I love is this invitation to think about the way we experience God in nature, and that speech and breath and river can all be the same thing. That when we are with the river, we can hear the river speaking, and we can hear the river breathing. And so I appreciate that invitation to consider all the forms of speech and breath around us.
And Pastor Sarah, spirit is ruach, which means breath. Is that right? How do you pronounce that? Is that ruach? Okay.
I apologize for coming in late, but I have to say, when I think about the river, I think of it as a sustaining feature of the geography of not only the earth, but I could see it as a sustaining feature in the geography of faith, in that the river is a source of life and brings life, but it doesn't stay in one spot. I mean, it courses through the landscape, and it takes many forms. As I was listening to the river water, I was thinking, oh, I wonder if that's a sandy bottom or is that a stony bottom, and what's that going to be like on my feet? So the river has personality, I think.
Yeah.
And you could even say with the poet Sonia, who had a stutter, the river stutters. I mean, if you, in that sound of the bubbling and babbling, and, and so I like that idea of thinking about disabilities as part of nature, and not something that's broken or wrong, but just part of the diversity of nature.
Yeah.
I think when you compare the life of Jesus to the life of Sonia, and how they both struggled and persevered through childhood traumas, looking at that, when it speaks to preparation, there might be moments where you, even though you don't feel ready and you don't feel prepared, you kind of just feel called to go do something, so, that Sonia felt called to speak against racial injustice, and Jesus felt called to be baptized by another person who didn't even feel that he was worthy to baptize Jesus, because he was Jesus. So there are just moments where, even with all the preparation you have, or if you don't have, you just feel called in that moment to do something.
Isn't there a passage that says nothing good ever came out of Nazareth? Seems to me I remember that. And that would be another link, that both come from places that are not honored by the majority society. The other thing I wanted to add to what Carol said about personalities of rivers. In my hometown, there were two rivers, and one was called the Mad River, and the other was called the Still River. So people in the old days who named them saw personality in those rivers.
John 1 verse 46, can anything good come from Nazareth?
Thank you. My paraphrase was a little off, but the idea was the same.
Yeah. I love these reflections. I mean, it's, Lizzie, I believe you said, it's something I don't think about often, to think that Jesus going through trauma, right, is significant. And we often don't frame that in such a way because of, Jesus being great and Jesus going through, all these things and still being divine.
Another thought I had about the river and in conjunction with the idea of preparation for greatness is that rivers start out as really small streams or whatever, and they often meander back and forth in their course to their ultimate destination, where they become a wide open, very large river. So I was thinking about how on any particular journey, and even in a call, sometimes that path is it doesn't go like straight line from A to B. It may wander a bit. And sometimes the river changes course too. So I think the river is really a powerful image for something that is both there in a kind of a permanent way, but always changing and very changeable.
Mm. That is a great lead into the fact that we will be looking at symbols throughout this Lenten journey. And this week's symbol is humility and strength, which Carol kind of reminds me of what you were just describing the river to be. It demonstrates its strength, but also its flexibility and its humility and its, ability to move through things. I don't know, is anyone here familiar with these symbols? Because if you are, I would appreciate help with pronunciation. But no one, no. I will work on pronouncing these properly.
Jim had something he wanted to share.
Yeah.
I'm still in the river.
Okay.
In the past week, in communicating with some other people about genealogy, I was trying to locate an ancestor who lived above and below 2 points on the Delaware River.
Mm.
And the upper point was Treasure Island Scout Camp. And the river would split around that island. And the only way to get there was by motorized boats. But the thing that came to mind as we were talking about this, and I was trying to remember why, there were times when we would go to the side of the split where it was running more rapidly. And I think maybe we were actually bathing in it and sitting in it at times. But the thing I was remembering was that older scouts and scout leaders would face upstream toward us and stretch across a distance of it so that they could catch us if we did get caught in the current.
Hmm.
And a sense of safety about that.
Yeah.
Back when I suppose I was 10, there were 3 brothers in our church. One was 10 and there were 2 that were a little older. And they were walking in the Fall Creek. And it was winter time and it was frozen over. The days were colder then. And excepting it wasn't frozen over. And 2 of them slipped and went under the ice and were swept downstream. And the ice was thick enough that they could not break up and they died. The one that survived was my age, Steve Buchanan, who was part of the Flannery Buchanan family. And I've been in contact with his son recently. He lives in well, he's back here. But that was a big trauma in our church to have, we're a small church, congregational church, and we lost 2 kids in the river in the Fall Creek.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to read today's little kind of takeaway, and then I'm going to offer some questions if you want to reflect on for this next week, you can. I can also email them to you. And then I'm going to let Sonia have the last word with another poem. So, as Sonia Sanchez accepted her divine call to be a poet, her journey towards activism began. She would not only meet and befriend Malcolm X, but she would also involve herself in the American Civil Rights Movement and the Black Power movement. Some of her first series of published poetry include Homecoming in 1969 and We Are a Bad People in 1970. Her poetry was radical and affirmed with her pride her identity as a Black American and a person of African descent. As she was preparing for the new day, Sonia, the revolutionary, like Jesus, would have to walk on, be it, do it. As a professor and educator, Sanchez was a leader in the effort to establish the discipline of Black studies at the university level. In 1966, while teaching at San Francisco State University, she introduced Black studies and Black literature courses. In 1969, while teaching at University of Pittsburgh, Sanchez was the first to create and teach a course discussing the Black woman and literature in the United States. It was a new platform for the study of race and a challenge to the institutional biases of American universities. Sonia, like Jesus, was now undergoing a new baptism of thought and introspection. Like I said, these questions I can send to you, or you can find them on the video once it's shared. These are questions that you can reflect on for this next coming week, until we meet again next week. And I am going to go ahead and let Sonia have the last word here.
Can I ask, one of the
Yeah.
questions was about another person. Will Sonia Benita Driver?
Right.
I don't know that person.
Yes. So I don't know if she comes up next week, or if that's something that would be a Google search.
I will look at.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I noticed that as well.
In this time, in this place, in the United States, it is such a time that we must begin to stand on the side of love. The great writer Zora Neale Hurston said that fear was the greatest emotion on the planet Earth. And I said, no, my dear sister, fear will make us move to save our lives, to save our own skins. But love will make us also save our lives and our own skins, but it will make us also save other people's skins and lives also too. So love is primary at this particular point. Put on what I call the sleeves of love. Put on the legs of love. Put on the feet of love. Put on the head of love. Put on the mouth of love. Put on the hands of love. And love, 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 love yourself and others. Love your country and other countries. Love yourself. Love people who don't look like you. Love people who don't even like you. Call them brothers and sisters, but love them because love, 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 love is the greatest emotion on the planet Earth. Love each other, your brothers and your sisters. Love, 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 love.
Lovely.
Thank you so much for coming today. And I will be staying on a few minutes if anybody has any questions about this or about yeah, the forthcoming weeks or anything like that. So go in love and go in peace, and may we all go into the new day together. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.